I'm so glad you came over early.
Me too, I missed this.
I came home earlier than usual that Friday, keys still warm in my hand, already imagining a quiet dinner in a silent house. But the lights were on. Laughter drifted down the hallway before I even shut the door. It wasn't the laugh she used with me. This one was sharper, careless, unguarded. Her voice floated from the living room, playful and intimate. "A ma'am," replied, his tone familiar enough to make my stomach tighten. I stood there, long enough to understand exactly what I was hearing, long enough for something inside me to finally settle instead of break. I didn't walk in. I didn't confront them. I turned around, stepped back outside, and sat in my car until the laughter stopped meaning anything at all. My name is Andrew Cole. I'm 46 years old, and for most of my adult life I've managed capital. Quietly, I learned early that the people who brag the loudest usually understand the least. Money, like power, works best when it's invisible. My wife, Rachel, was the opposite of invisible. She loved attention. When we met, she was brilliant and ambitious. I admired that. So when she told me she wanted to start her own firm, I didn't hesitate. I structured the funding, kept my name off the website, and stayed in the background just like she wanted. She called it independence. I called it partnership. Somewhere along the way, she started calling it hers alone. The firm grew fast. Rachel thrived. I stayed home, showed up at events when expected, and smiled for photos I was never tagged in. It didn't bother me at first. But distance doesn't arrive all at once. It comes in late nights explained away, phones turned face down, conversations shortened to logistics. I noticed patterns for a living. And when patterns stopped being coincidences, I did what I always do. I verified. The report was clean and thorough. Dates, locations, names. One of her senior partners. Someone who shook my hand and thanked me for supporting her vision. So when she handed me divorce papers at her company's anniversary gala, I wasn't surprised. The room was full of applause and speeches about empowerment. She pulled me aside, smiling like this was just another business win. "It's time," she said. I glanced at the papers, nodded, and signed my name. She looked relieved. I congratulated her on the event and walked out before dessert. In the elevator, I opened an app and confirmed the first transfer. By the time I reached the parking garage, the process was in motion. I didn't take anything that wasn't mine. I simply stopped supplying what was. The funding structure ID, built years earlier, had a simple feature Rachel never bothered to learn about. It assumed trust until trust ended. When primary capital was withdrawn, everything downstream unraveled, not out of spite, but design. My phone stayed silent for 12 minutes, then it didn't stop. Confident demands turned into panic. I didn't respond. The next morning, our son confronted me. He'd grown up believing his mother was self-made. I showed him the records. Every wire, every guarantee, every risk absorbed quietly so she could shine. He just apologized for assuming silence meant absence. Rachel's lawyer reached out. Threats followed. Accusations of cruelty. My attorney responded once with facts and a copy of the agreement Rachel had signed without reading years earlier. The tone changed. What surprised me wasn't her anger, it was her shock. She genuinely believed the foundation would stay in place no matter how she treated the person holding it up. Her partner disappeared as soon as the firm's accounts froze. Loyalty, it turns out, is often leased, not owned. Eventually she asked to meet. No lawyer, she looked older. Reality had finally caught up with the image. She offered apologies that felt more strategic than sincere. I listened. Then I made an offer. Limited. Controlled. Fair. She could keep a fraction of the firm, step away from leadership, and acknowledge it was built through partnership. Pride or survival, not both, she agreed. Life settled into something quieter after that. The divorce finalized. The house sold. The routines rewritten. Months later, Rachel sent a short message. Just a simple thank you. I didn't reply. Not because I was angry, but because closure doesn't always need an answer. I used to think being the steady one meant being invisible. I know better now. Stability isn't disappearing. It's standing firm enough to be seen when it matters. And that, finally, feels like enough. Thanks for listening to my story. If you found this meaningful, please consider liking this video and subscribing for more.